Hello everyone, before we get started into this next episode, I want to give a quick shout out again to Seth Roy of North Mountain Goshawks for continuing to help support the podcast, and for those of you that are still potentially in the market for a new parent-reared North American Finnish or Russian goshawk in particular, Seth's definitely the guy you should hit up. Send him an email at ostringer3@gmail.com, or send him a message on Facebook at North Mountain Goshawks, or you can even fill out the information form at northmountaingoshawks.com. You don't want to hesitate to get on that list, so hit up Seth and get your new hunting partner reserved for next season. And now, on to this next episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast.
The goss is sitting up. I don't even know where she was. She was just sitting up in a tree somewhere. We were more focused on the dog, and the dog goes up in the hole, and he's like, "Oh, pull the dog out, you know. Yeah, let it play." And you can hear the rabbit climbing up a hollow tree, and the dog climbing up. It wasn't a really big tree, maybe 16 inches in diameter, but obviously hollow, and it was broken off at the top at about 30 foot. And the Dachshund crawled up that tree as the rabbit was, and the rabbit bailed right out the top of the tree, and before it hit the ground, the goss got it.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast, and whether you are enjoying it or not, we're back in the world of Dachshunds again. So, anyway, I hope you have continued to enjoy hearing more and more about this particular breed, which has become near and dear to my heart, of course, and the hearts of so many. But our guest for this episode, Erik Swanson, is another guy who this breed has made a big impact on, and Erik's also part of that New Jersey crew that I got a chance to record a lot of episodes with last summer while I was down there, and he's also the owner of East Coast Falcons, and I owe Erik another big thank you because he's become another big supporter of the podcast as well, and I appreciate that from him, and he's done a lot to help me out over the last year or so, and like I said, I'm very appreciative to him for that and for his support. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over here to this conversation that I had with Erik, so you can hear more about some of his experiences in falconry and his abatement business, and of course Dachshunds. So anyway, without further ado, here's Erik Swanson, and here we go. Well, thanks. How far did you have to drive to get here? You live close?
Very close.
Very close?
About a half an hour, 40 minutes.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't too bad for you. It wasn't 12 hours like Madison.
No.
Fair enough, man. Well, I just want to start off by saying, though, that I'm a little jealous of you.
I get that a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're fortunate enough not to develop this, this horseshoe, the horseshoe on top that so many of us, unfortunately, develop in as we get older. But, oh, man, you're lucky. Like I said, man, I'm envious.
My brother developed the horseshoe and really didn't like me anymore.
Was that the only reason?
Well, no, there were others.
Okay. Fair enough, man. Well, like I said, I mean, I appreciate you making the half-hour, 45-minute drive down here and hanging out and, talking some falconry and letting the world know your story and stuff. But I mean, speaking of that, I mean, have you always lived around, Jersey and this area?
No, I started off from Brooklyn, Staten Island, Manhattan, and then to Jersey, Verona, Montclair area, okay. And then up to Essex County, and then up to the Bergen County area when I got married.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, as far as, so when you were a kid, it was more New York?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, aside from driving through and, like, being through Buffalo and some other parts of, I haven't been to New York City yet or any of that surrounding area. I still haven't been.
It's good to see once.
Yeah. Yeah, not a big fan of visiting often, are you?
No, I don't go back unless I have to.
Yeah.
I go for work and, that kind of stuff. But, I don't ever want to go back there.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, and speaking of work, though, I mean, you've done abatement for a while, haven't you?
Most of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. How many years?
Probably 38-ish. I don't know. Hard to say. I don't really remember. But I don't know. I've always been an animal trainer. I started with dogs, and then from dogs I moved over to exotics. I really didn't like the way the police and military were treating my dogs, so I moved over to exotic training, and that was when I actually trained my first bird.
Okay. So you trained dogs, like, did you train them for that specific purpose early on, like military and police and stuff, or what did you?
Narcotic patrol, dual purpose, bomb, cadaver.
Oh, okay. Whew. I bet you that was intense to some degree.
I really enjoyed, especially the man work, the patrol work. I really enjoyed that. Narcotics is a little bit boring, but still kind of fun. It's just all scent work, and bomb it's just, you don't have to worry about it exploding. It's not the real deal. You're just training it.
Right.
The guy who gets the dog, well, not so good for him.
Yeah. Well, about how long does it take to train a dog for something like that?
30 days.
Really?
Depending on how far you're going to go. 30 days, 6 months.
Okay.
But we were mostly bringing dogs in from Western, East, a little bit of Western, a little bit of Eastern Europe, and mostly importing a lot of dogs, and then they were being resold to military and police. Okay. The amount of training depended on what the departments wanted. So...
Well, what breeds? Like German Shepherds, German Malinois, or
Shepherds at first. Then I started
Belgian Malinois, I should say. So, yeah.
I started bringing in Malinois, but we had a big problem with Malinois. It was a long time ago. It was before they were even popular, and a lot of the police departments would send them back. They were too aggressive or too hard to handle. A lot of cops would get bit because they're didn't really, when you crank the dog up, stop slapping him in the butt, he won't bite you, but it's,
yeah, I don't know anything. I'm over the years, I'm a lot more familiar now with a lot of basic, like dog psychology, basic obedience type stuff and whatever, but I've definitely never been involved in anything that, is you're training some, like a dog to attack someone else or scent drugs or bombs or anything like that. So I'm pretty ignorant to that process. So like I said, I think it's interesting though.
It's not as hard as you would think. It's you get a good dog with good drive. It'll pretty much do whatever you ask. And then some more. But it's I don't know. It's like any dog, you really have to work with them to bring out their best. If you don't work with your dog, you don't get them out and, working hard, you're not going to get a good result. If you get out there and you work them hard and, keep them running and keep them interested, keep them working, can build some confidence on them. Put a man in a suit and let him think they just killed him. Well, next one's in trouble because.
Yeah, I figure the stakes are probably a little bit higher with something like that, though.
When you're training them, not so much. It's controlled. For the guys that are out in the field, the stakes are pretty high.
Yeah. That's what I mean, though. I mean, if you end up training some dogs and they end up just, kind of frolicking up to someone that the police are chasing, just starts licking them or something, police might not be too happy with the result that they got. And
I've never seen one lick somebody. I mean, kind of a weird lick, but I guess you could call it that.
Man,
it's gonna hurt.
Oh, that's hilarious. No, I don't know, man. Like I said, that's definitely an avenue that I've never been down. But I respect people that are able to get the most, out of those types of dogs, especially. And I mean, I figured it was probably the more you put into it is the more you hopefully get out of it. And I mean, if the genetics are good, and it doesn't matter if it's a hunting dog or guard dog or attack dog or whatever. I mean, if the genetics are there, the drive's there, the more you do it, the more you're going to get out of it, I'm sure.
Even the genetics, it's really finding a good dog.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can find really good dogs in your local shelter. And for police departments that, didn't have any money, we did a lot of that. Go down, test every dog until you find one that's, got a good drive. And there you go. That's your dog now. You can't afford the $20,000 dog. Here's the donation dog from the shelter.
Mm. So those dogs were about as expensive to train then as, like, say, your the emotional assistance dogs and stuff like that, or the
emotional assistant dogs were a lot more. Yeah, they're a lot more expensive, but it's an insurance deal too, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's probably something that goes into that too. But anyway, no, like I said, I don't mind kind of digressing a little bit and talking about topics like this, because I don't know, personally, I like talking about things and finding out about these types of things that I don't know much about, and expanding my my knowledge base a little bit. And I'm sure there's going to be somebody that listens to this that hears something that they didn't know either. So, but yeah. So when did you stop doing that then?
I don't remember the year. I think I was 19.
Yeah.
And, or even younger. I just didn't like what was happening to a lot of the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to switch over to exotics, and it's kind of how I ended up here in North Jersey. I ended up in a zoo here, training almost all of their stock to stay for veterinarian procedures, getting the cougars to, or the tigers, the cougars, whatever, to, be able to draw blood without having to knock them down. But at the time, they were using rompin and ketamine to knock down their animals. So pretty much as a rule, 1 out of 10 died. So they were interested in having less knockdown and more, work with the animals. So, we were working with large stock, elk, bison, llamas, whatever, and, all the way down to penguins and otters. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, is that kind of rule of thumb, was it in existence because animals just had simple reactions, or was it a dosage issue, or is it just they didn't even really know? It's just 1 out of every 10 animals just died.
They couldn't handle the drug.
Yeah.
So the drug
too potent or whatever. Yeah.
It's ketamine and rompin's a tough, now they have a much better, simpler, and, but that was just the way it worked. And, I guess the Zoological Society there was getting tired of it and wanted something done about it. So I got hired as a trainer to train all the animals to stand for veterinarian procedures. And
what went into that?
As simple as, teaching a cougar to put his paw into a trap and to hold it there and stick him with a needle and, give him a rat at the end. And, kind of almost like falconry, just, giving him his food, rationed. So you're kind of working for your food. And then eventually that needle, got switched over to an actual real needle, and you were drawing blood, taking your blood sticks and pretty much all the animals for that. And then, like the large stock, training to go into chutes and, just so they could be taken care of. And it's a different kind of a way of doing things, but it worked out really well.
Yeah. Okay. So basic food association, just like, birds and stuff, and they're building a relationship with a lot of these types of wild animals. Then
Food association, as well as positive praise, or positive reinforcement, so long praise with food and, which, everybody's like, well, tigers don't like praise. Yeah. Oh yeah, they do. They like to get, depending on, I don't know. We had a cougar there. It didn't matter. He was going to eat you, but we had another tiger that was actually hand raised, and all he wanted was a scratch behind his neck, so, get him to stick his, to stick his paw out, stick him and, trap him, stick him, and then scratch him for 20 minutes. And he was happy.
On to the next.
Yep. On to the next, and onto the clouded leopard, onto the, the other cougar, onto the other tiger. And, they didn't have a lot. And they had a fisher. He wasn't really nice, but he was kind of angry. But yeah, never really got through to him.
Well, that's neat, though. I mean, so I'm assuming that probably at some point in time, were raptors involved in this scenario at all also, or is that just something that was completely separate?
At first, no. And I had the curator of the zoo who came up and said, can you train an eagle? I don't know, I guess. And why? Well, I feel bad for that eagle. It just sits there all day and looks unhappy. Okay, I'll try. And then I started reading about falconry and, what's involved, and, kind of was fascinated by it and started reading more and more and more. And not a whole lot of books. I don't know. I got North American Falconry and Hunting Hawks and was like, oh my God, this is great, and and then did a little bit differently, started going into the cage and hanging out with the eagle and bringing her mice, and used, the falconry aspect from it. You don't get fed, and got her to come over to me and start eating. And eventually, we grabbed a hold of her and put some jesses on her, and eventually got her to where I could walk up to her and grab the jesses and pick her up. I didn't get her to jump to me at first. I was kind of a little afraid. She was a pretty big eagle, and got her to eventually step up on the fist and started walking her out in the zoo. And people at the zoo really loved it. They thought she was seeing an eagle up close, I guess, is great, but walking around with a 14-pound bird on your fist is it's not exactly fun. But
yeah. And I'm sorry, I might have missed it. Did you say it was a bald eagle, or what type of eagle was it?
Female golden.
Oh, female golden. Okay.
And I don't know. From there, the zoo was asking me if I could train the red tails that they had now, and ended up doing them, and ended up actually using them for free flight. And then they wanted to buy me some peregrines to fly, so we bought some peregrines and from Falconers. And actually, it was funny. I got passed around. So one falconer that I don't know. He was even mentioned in North American hunting hawks, and he was one of the first I contacted, and then he passed me off to another falconer, and that falconer actually taught me how to be a falconer, and he lives in Montana, and he spent countless hours on the phone with me, just unbelievable the amount of time and letters that he wrote, and taught me how to make hoods. And at that time, it was kind of make your own gear, so we didn't have the internet, and and just buy hoods, and go on eBay, and or wherever. And we didn't have Western Sporting, and at that time, Northwoods was around, but they didn't sell a lot at that time. They got pretty big as time went on. But it's you know. So learned how to do all of that. And then the peregrines came and we started training the birds to, I don't know, go up. Wasn't very high, maybe 300-400 foot, and then come down in a stoop. And we used to bring the bird down to the lure and then switch it over to a quail and bring all the kids and sit them around in a circle, and they would watch the bird eat its you know, we had actually 6, so we were able to fly them, you know, separately for the shows, and kids would sit around and watch them eat a quail, and you know, it was really kind of cool reactions. You know, I don't think I ever saw a kid that wasn't amazed by it. Had plenty of parents that would come up and try to cover their eyes. You know, I'll never forget this one kid. His mom came up and tried covering his eyes, and you know, he told me, "Get the fuck off me, Mom! This is the coolest shit I've ever seen." You know, little I don't know. Kid had to be like 9 years old. I was like, "Wow!"
And I quote,
you know, like, "Geez," you know. And, but it was a different way, and you know, kind of you know, you know, for a zoo, it was kind of progressive. It was also a zoo that was on the, it was either closing down. The county was claiming they didn't have enough money to run it, and running a zoo was expensive. You know, it's $1 million budget. So the idea that the Zoological Society had was to start doing free flight programs to bring in money for the zoo. And we booked almost a budget in a year, which the county never let happen. They just stopped that. And the good news is that the guy who is now the county executive, but before he was county, you know, when he became a county executive, the zoo became AZA certified and is a really nice place now. Mm-hmm. You know, when I was there, it was pretty shady. You know?
So whenever they did the overhauls and everything like that, then did you decide that it was time to move on at that point, or did you stay on a little bit longer, or were you part of the budget cuts?
They wanted me out of there pretty bad.
Yeah.
And, some people did, some didn't. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, and it was time to move on. Mm-hmm. You know, working at a zoo, I had to start, you know, a tree business so I could work on the weekends to pay rent. As at the time, they were giving me $9 an hour. You know, I don't know. I think our rent was $1,200 a month. You know, we rented a house, and there was, you know, 6 zookeepers living in that house, and you know, even if you do the math, it doesn't work out so well.
Yeah.
You know? So I was climbing trees to pay rent. And the good thing was it was a great party. You know, every day was a party. You know, but, you know, working like that, and the zoo at that time, there was really nobody watching, so most of our nights we partied at the zoo. It's a lot of fun.
It sounds like it. Yeah. No, I think that there comes a point in time in a lot of those types of ventures where whether it's decided for someone or whether it's not, someone always kind of eventually comes to the realization that certain instances or certain scenarios like that in their life, it can't stay that way. And
it did for a lot of the zookeepers that were in their 50s and 60s still trying to pay.
Yeah, well, there is that.
You know, but yeah. I didn't want that kind of life. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it just, you know, no, I kind of wanted a little more than that, you know, a little more out of life than that.
Sure.
So, you know, I ended up switching over to working in abatement, mm-hmm. You know.
So whenever you were learning to kind of handle these different birds and stuff at the zoo, and whenever you were kind of learning the ropes in falconry, I mean, what were you flying in your personal falconry during that time also?
Well, I became a falconer while I was at the zoo. Mm-hmm. I guess I was getting some calls from falconers in the state that, because a lot of those birds, I was hunting them, and state was like, you got to get your falconry license. And so I did. And then I don't know, first bird I ended up flying was a Harris hawk. And just, I don't know, we had the guy that ran the falconry program for the state, because of the amount of birds that I've flown, and at that time I'd already trained 6 bald eagles. Not that they were flighted or anything, but the golden and then the red tails and the peregrines and as a couple owls, and they just said, we'll just give you your master falconry, master class, and man, I got a lot of grief from a lot of falconers. They did not like that. So I just said, I don't care. I'll just do an apprenticeship. Apprenticed, and got I don't know. I did end up flying instead of a red tail, a Harris hawk, because I had one, and I didn't get much grief over that, and it was, and then from there, normal progression, master, apprentice, general, master, and whatever.
Yeah, rest is history, as they say.
Yeah. Then, I don't know, started working, better gigs. I started working for a company that had JFK, so I worked there. I worked at McGuire Air Force Base, started a bunch of different landfills and, stuff like that, and just decided that, I don't know, kind of was looking for something different.
Yeah, just felt right for you at the time.
Yeah, no, it was, it was good. I really enjoyed it. Fly birds all week, and then on your days off or after work or before work, fly your hawk or hawks. At the time I was really into goshawks. So I was flying my goss, having a good time. Really had a little spell with a couple of years with Cooper's hawks. Really liked them. Still do. But
Imprint or passage or?
Yeah, imprint.
Okay.
And had the same thing that most people have. First imprint I had, I had a bind right to your face. And I had a kid that lived next door to me, and he wanted to see that bird fly something awful. And it was simple stuff out the car window on birds and, doves and, starlings, whatever you could find. And, up here in the north, we just don't have fields like, the classic falconry fields that you read about, where, there's starlings all over it, or larks, and and it just doesn't exist here. We have industrial parks with birds feeding on the lawns. So, I guess you could hunt them off the fist, but it's a lot easier out the car window.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, I took that kid, and that was a funny bird. So I finally got to, and again, we didn't have the internet. You couldn't go on there and read about it. Getting incipiter guys to talk to you and give you advice was pretty hard.
Yeah.
I guess, all right, they, everybody at the time was telling me that, they don't want to give away their secrets. Well, they don't want to give away their secrets because they don't have any.
Yeah.
And it, that kid I took out, that was, a funny bird. I got her where I could, if I made him backwards and, she wouldn't attack me, and I could get down next to her and trade her up. And then I had a little Honda Accord with the seat, back down. So you take her there and she'd fly right back in the window and drag it into the trunk, and she'd eat. And, I told that kid, here's the rules. Don't look at her. Whatever you do, don't look back there. And sure enough, I could see him. Here goes his face, a little more. And finally he looked, and, from that, cluking to, boop, right on his head. Told you not to do that, man. But it's, but yeah, I don't know. But I've really enjoyed incipiters, and I guess I was into my second Goshawk when when I started really, hearing about great things with Dachshunds. And that's when I got my first Dachshund. A couple people told me that my hawk's going to eat my Dachshund. You can't fly, can't fly Goshawk with a Dachshund. Well, actually you can. It worked out really well. And now, I'm glad it's that way because, a lot of the guys I see now, they're all running Dachshunds with Goss and doing very well.
Yeah. Well, you know how it is, man. Like falconry, you can't do certain forms of falconry. It's impossible until somebody does it. And then everybody wants to learn how to do it.
I've always been that guy that when somebody says you can't do it, well, now I got to do it. Why did you say that? It was, I don't know. Everybody's, I see, especially on the internet, everybody's like on this, like, we hate owls kick. And I was talking with another friend of mine that we have, the same mindset. They say they can't do it. Let's do it. And we were actually going to try to put together a hawk owl breeding program just to start. Well, he's a kestrel lover, and so we were thinking, well, wouldn't it be cool to fly hawk owls out the car window on starlings? Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I always thought something like that would be kind of neat to do with smaller owls, like screech owls or something like that too. But I mean, I don't, it's an uncharted territory for me, and I don't know if anybody else has done it really. So
that's why it's got to be done.
Yeah. Well, whenever you come up with that formula, you have to let me know, man. Unless you want to be like those accipiter guys of old, and don't want to share your secrets, so to speak.
I'll share anything with anybody. I had one of my Falcons used to catch rabbits on a pretty regular basis out of JFK. Believe it or not, there are jackrabbits everywhere at JFK. Just black-tailed jacks. The story that I always got from the airport people was some hunting club ordered all these rabbits and never picked them up, so the employees there just cut them loose at the airport, and well, now they've got thousands of jacks in the airport. And
the habitat around there supports them, like,
perfectly. And
how?
You got the perfect grass, you got flat fields, and you got everything you need. There's plenty of water, there's good cover, and they let the grass grow nice and high. It was probably the best part of my life for a while. My job was to catch as many jackrabbits as I could.
That's crazy. What were you? So you were catching? What type of falcon were you catching them with?
With a Saker.
Okay.
And probably had a little jeer in it, but it was.
So like a lot of guys out west are doing, like with the jeers on jacks or jeer Sakers on jacks, same type of deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you using dogs with that also? Were you
using a Dachshund?
Yeah.
And worked great. You had to. It was a little bit of a different kind of training. You had to get the dog to flush it and then recall the dog right away because you didn't want the dog going across a runway. So it was a little bit of a not hard, and all of my dogs knew the difference. We're at the airport today. I got to come back. We're in this field. I can chase them anywhere I want. And it's good to have a good recall on a dog, especially if you live up here.
Yeah.
If you drove around, you see there's streets everywhere.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I mean, most of the time, whenever you hear of guys that are doing that type of falconry, they're using sight hounds and like salukis, bigger, type dogs, and running sight hound type dogs. And I'm getting this visual in my head is watching, a dachshund or running after freaking, jackrabbits. And so, I mean, in the bigger fields then, were you letting them just keep them running, or like where there wasn't runways, or what were you doing with that?
you let them run.
Yeah.
You know,
They just keep circling them around.
Yeah, the only difference is it's, so when the Dachshunds chase them, obviously, even a cottontail can get way ahead of them, and
Sure.
then it stops, and the Dachshund has to catch up, and then it goes again, and so you had a different kind of it's not like the classic flights that you hear, the New Mexico flights where there's 4 dogs just chasing this, just going for miles and miles. Here it's 100 foot. But it's it's definitely a different kind of falconry, in New Jersey, or even up close New York to Manhattan. When you get up further in the state, you start to get into a better class of falconry. But if you live down, in the city or in a crowded state, you don't have a lot of options.
Yeah, I was going to say, your options are limited and you're kind of restricted a little bit. And not that you have to use the word like settle, but you have to be content with what you're given in those kind of environments, I guess.
You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
and you have to deal with traffic, windows, learning where to fly, and don't fly too close to windows, especially with a coops or a goss.
Mm-hmm.
And keep an eye on your dog and your bird really tight. Head's constantly swiveling because there's roads, there's other people with dogs. Mm-hmm. I can't even tell you how many times I've had my Dachshund stolen, and you're in a park-like setting, and, here's somebody that means well. Oh, look at the poor dog that's lost.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's got a big collar on it, a radio collar, or, a 2-foot antenna hanging off of it. And,
yeah.
But then again, you got to remember where you live. They don't know what a hunting dog looks like. You know? I actually, when I had my first Dachshund, I couldn't afford, real dog telemetry or, a radio collar. And so I just took a old Merlin MX, transmitter and taped it to her collar. And I had an old lady that she didn't want to give me my dog back because she told me that the dog had a pacemaker. I was like, what do you mean the dog has a pacemaker? Yeah, look at the antenna. That's for its pacemaker. I don't know. Yeah, okay. Give me my dog back.
That's hilarious. Well, you know what a buddy of mine did that to kind of mitigate that some, because he had someone try and take one of his dogs once too. How you can make those nameplate collars and stuff, with the contact information and everything. He put his like the first line, he put, some of the basic contact info or whatever, but on the second line or third line, I can't remember, he said he put on there, has seizures.
Nice.
And so, nobody's going to want a free dog that has seizures, right?
That's a great idea.
So, I was just, nobody wants that poor lost dog that's going to all of a sudden just start convulsing on them, I guess. They're not as homeward bound worthy as the average pet, I guess. So
that's a great idea. The next caller I have is gonna say the name of some laboratory and infectious disease unit. Absolutely, I love it.
Yeah, I thought it was genius too, but I unfortunately already had mine made. So they're not that expensive, thankfully, though. So I after I heard about that, I thought, what's another, I don't know, like $16 or whatever, right? Just go ahead and, has seizures and recovering from AIDS or something. I don't know, whatever. And it's like, just go ahead and get creative with it, I guess.
You can have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Good. No, that's neat though, man. Like, I would have never thought that jackrabbits, because jackrabbits generally don't really exist east of the Mississippi for the most part. It's just not, there might be some odds and ends, exceptions here and there or whatever. But that's what I've always been taught, and that's what I've seen anyway. But I guess they only exist east of the Mississippi and JFK Airport.
There's a couple other spots in New Jersey,
Yeah.
down south, yeah. Old hunting clubs, and, you know, they're where the hunting club hasn't been mowed over and turned into homes yet, and it's abandoned, and they're pretty few and far between.
I bet.
And they're, you know, I don't know. It's, you know, it used to drive me crazy because I was constantly tripping in their scrapes, and, you know, it's, you walk in a field and boom, you know, I found another one.
That's nuts. Well, and so going back to the dogs themselves again, as we were talking before, I mean, this series is largely dedicated to this wonderful breed that we've all come to know and love. And I mean, what was your first initial inspiration then to get into this breed?
I always heard about Teddy and how she was running her Dachshunds, and thought it was the greatest idea. You know, well, to be honest with you, you know, I've been hunting rabbits for quite a while, really enjoy it, running around with a stick, coming home sweating, you know, just torn to pieces. And, you know, I mean, well, at least up here, you know, if you want to find rabbits, you find them in the area where the thickest, you know, briars are, and, you know, and we have some pretty good ones. You know, you find them a lot in the cat's claw, and, you know, you usually always come home cut up, and I decided to buy my first, and I got lucky. The first one I had was a really good dog. She had a really good nose on her. When we were initially training her, that was kind of hard, you know, finding rabbit, you know, place, or a good place for rabbits, you know, a good field. We started running her in a cemetery, and it was hot. You know, I started her young and didn't need to, but didn't, you know, first hunting dog, I got to get him going, And, you know, we were always hot. The dog was always hot. And so we came up with one of my apprentice. We came up with a great idea. Let's run the dog at night, because it's a lot cooler, and she doesn't need to see him. She just needs to smell him. Yeah, that worked really good for about 10 minutes until she found her first skunk. Dog rode home in the trunk that night. You know, it's, you know, so then decided that, you know, we'll wait for the fall. This is too much.
Yeah.
And, dog had a great nose, and falconry became something new. Mm-hmm. You know, I found rabbits where, you know, there were no rabbits. Well, now there were rabbits. My catch ratio tripled. Instead of coming home with two rabbits a day, you're coming home with 6 every day, you know, coming home with your limit. Even one of my other apprentices, he decided to get his first Dachshund because he was working a field with me, and man, he beat this one bush. Must have hit it 20 times because he was kind of convinced there'd be a rabbit in there. Nothing came out, and dog ran in. 2 rabbits came out, and he said, "I'm getting one of those." You know? And he did. He got actually one of my puppies he took, and that puppy was good enough. We used to run in a place that was full of Phragmites, and I don't know if you've ever worked Phragmites, but yeah, it's terrible. The only person I've ever seen do it is Casey Everett, you know, I mean, really do it. And the Dachshunds would go in there and just slip and slide, and his dog actually used to run the corners of it when we were working the back, and it would scent a rabbit and then run back and forth until it was sure where the rabbit was, and then just do this leap into the Phragmites. And about 50% of the time on that leap, it would catch a rabbit. So it's kind of, I don't know. I used to laugh because he'd get mad. He'd be like, you know, the hawk's supposed to get you. I was like, yeah. But,
yeah.
But
Yeah, there's some guys that have fun with other guys. They're just like, well, you got to make sure to keep tallies of what, which ones your dogs actually catch as opposed to, the hawk and all that. And I mean, to me, it doesn't matter. I mean, if it's in the game bag, it's in the game bag, but
it doesn't, what does it matter?
Yeah, it doesn't really. It's all part of the team. It's all part of the same hunting team. I mean, whatever, but
I think, I would say, with my first dog or my first Dachshund, she probably, the first, one of my apprentices, when his first hawk, the dog caught more rabbits than his hawk did that year. He was a little upset about that, but I caught a lot, because the hawk wasn't catching too much, so the rabbits would run down a hole and can't keep a Dachshund out of a hole, so down they'd go, and that would be that.
No, that's cool though. I mean, I think that's initially like most people. I think that's their initial. I mean, they see somebody else do something cool, they're inspired. Then all of a sudden they want one because they see how cool it is and how well it works. And I mean, as I've learned the majority of this week, there's a heck of a lot of people that had the same experiences, and ironically enough, it did kind of seem to spawn all from mostly the same person too.
I was always thinking Weimaraner. Weimaraners point rabbits, they'll point that. Mm-hmm. Big dog, a lot of work, and that's what I was thinking until I saw what Teddy's dogs were doing, and I was like, yeah, forget that. I'm getting a Dachshund.
Yeah,
and then I mean, I kind of suffered a little bit because all of the guys that I used to train, patrol dogs with, they saw that Dachshund and just started laughing at me. And it was like, yeah, no, this is what I'm doing now. And then, you're going to get beat up when you walk that dog.
Well, and what you just said is kind of, unfortunately, more of the route, close to the route that I ended up taking initially. I've told some of these other guys that, I mean, initially, whenever I got my first hunting dog, I got into Vigilas. So, I mean, I got a Vigila for my first dog. The exact same train of thought. It's versatile, right? It can do, rabbit, which it can. I mean, my dog has kicked up plenty of rabbits and kicked up plenty of rabbits. And the problem though is that like with my spots are a lot like you guys' spots. They're small, they're more condensed, and there's a lot of briar and a lot of other cover and stuff that a bigger dog like that, especially one with a much thinner, coat and not very much protection, especially from things like briars and stuff, is not really well equipped to get into. And so, yeah, if I would have had it to do all over again, I would have definitely gone the other route. And I love all my dogs to death. I do. But had I known better, I can't say this enough, had I known better and known to think those extra few steps ahead, definitely would have gone the smaller route with this breed for sure.
The Dachshund is probably, to me, if you're going to hunt rabbits, you need one. Mm-hmm. And they also don't run the rabbit big. They're going to let the rabbit go to the next cover, and you're going to get your next slip and your next slip. And, if the dog goes to a hole, they're going to go in and get it out one way or another. It's either going to get drug out or come out another hole. So if it's a one-way hole, you caught a rabbit. I've kind of, where I'm, the stage of life I'm in now, I don't let my dogs do hole work anymore. I don't want to do it. I'm not digging one out again. And my wife gets too attached to them, which is kind of a really cool thing about a Dachshund is there's a duality. Even like my first dog, when my wife and I, got married, I could take that dog home. It could run all day long. And, it was, just a solid mass of muscle. And we pretty much did hawk 8 to 10 hours a day, every day, either at the airport or, off the airport. And when I'd come home, I'd bring home a dirty, muddy-ass dog, and my wife would throw it in the sink, clean it up, paint its nails pink, and stick a bow in its hair. And it would sleep with her in the bed and cuddle her and act like a teddy bear, and... I don't know, before I got married, I had a friend that he used to come over every Thursday, Friday, sometimes Saturday, and he'd pick the dog up, take it to the park, and go get, his dates for the week.
That's amazing.
It worked well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely a utility type dog. I wish I would have discovered them or discovered all the different types of practical uses for them, before I got married, but that was forever ago. It's too late for that now. But my wife loves mine too. And that's the reason why I actually ended up with my first one, was because she wanted a quote unquote lap dog. And I was just like, this is the perfect excuse for me to get the breed of dog that I know now in hindsight that I really should have started off with anyway. So it was a win-win. And now we have two. So it's been nice.
They're, they're house training them may not be that easy.
Well, and that brings us to the next segment here. Before we stop talking about these dogs, I want to get your two opinions that I have been consistently getting now in this series. And I've been kind of doing my own little case study, so to speak, with this. And one, since you've bred them and you've had so many, I mean, what in your opinion is the best time to bring a pup home? Like how many weeks old, and the housebreaking part? I mean, what have you done to mitigate the overall just seemingly impossibility of getting these dogs like completely housebroken?
You're probably never going to get them completely housebroken. The females, you can. Mm-hmm. Most of my females, you could leave them home for 18 hours and they won't, mess the house. The males, well, they like to mark. Mm-hmm. And I see, a friend of mine, he puts a belly band on them.
That's what I do with mine now too. Yeah.
And, I always used to think that, 6 to 8 weeks was the right time to bring a dog home. And I used to send my puppies out at 6 to 8 weeks. Most people wanted them at 6 to 8 weeks. We just brought a wire hair in from Hungary. Nice dog, good lines, and he was with them for 4 months because that's what they do over there. And they keep the dog with the other puppies and the female for 4 months, and then they're sent out. And, well, that's what I would recommend now.
Yeah.
The dog is 100% acclimated. He came to us housebroken. If you have a breeder that, takes the dogs out,
sure, yeah.
But if you have a breeder that just lets them crap all over a house, well, that's yeah. Not a good dog,
No.
Now you're ruined.
Yeah, exactly.
But the dog is so acclimated, came to our dog at home and was perfectly adjusted with her. Didn't try to bully, didn't try to, just no problem. And the two of them, they sleep together, they hang out, everything. We just really got lucky. Mm-hmm. We got lucky with, our new female, and then we got really lucky with the male. And I'd kind of like to keep it to 2 dogs, but I think my wife's going to pull another. We're going to have 8 again. And I think she wants to get another female, another import. And then if that happens, well, she'll probably start breeding them again. And if that happens, I want this one, or I want these 2. And, it's just, so I don't know.
You're going to be overrun again, in other words.
I don't want to get overrun again. We had 8 of them at once, and it's just a lot of work.
Yeah, that's too many.
Well, it's too many, and again, it was breeding. You have you can't say no to your wife. I'm keeping these two. I tried saying no, and just a laugh and
right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But it's but I what I've seen now, and most of the dogs that I've ever imported all came out of Eastern Europe, and it's a different world, in training dogs. They take it much more seriously. Just to be able to breed a dog, you have to get certified and by the dog warden and this and that.
Yeah.
And, but to be honest with you, I believe in their system. And I've also, I've taken bites of, I don't know, when I was younger, I used to get invited to, all their, when I first saw it, it was really crazy to see people working dogs in a small football stadium with everybody watching. It was, people were that intense on it.
Stakes were a little bit higher.
Yeah, and the dogs hit a hell of a lot harder too. I'm missing a couple teeth back here, and it's from getting hit by dogs. First Malinois, I got hit back by, knocked out two back teeth. Or didn't knock them out, cracked them. But they had to come out. And it was like, whoa, I'm doing something wrong. Let me hang out with you guys. And it's when you see the dogs work, and I learned something. The breeder we were talking to, oh no, dog doesn't go at 6 to 8 weeks. It stays here for 4 months. Why? I wanted it, no, that's wrong. And this is my first one, but so far, wow.
Cool. Yeah, no, and that's, so far my experience has been, and it may have just been because I had the right dogs or the right scenarios or whatever, but I don't know if it's also just kind of a small breed in general thing too. I've heard other people say that the smaller the breed, usually the longer it should stay with the mom. I mean, it's kind of a general opinion I've heard also or whatever, but like I got both of my pups, I think it was around like the 13-ish week mark. And I said the exact same thing. It's like, I said, I'm never getting a pup ever again that's like under 12 weeks old, at least a few months old. I'm not going to do it. But once again, it's kind of like you said, I mean, I was fortunate that they were already working on the house training, the crate training. I mean, that was the best part for me, was that I remember the 5th or 6th ring of hell. That was like crate training, like the Vigilas. And, I brought them home kind of in between that. I think one was like 8 weeks and the other one was like, closer to 7. And those first few days of being home are just utter hell. You got to deal with a crying, whining dog, for a lot of those hours. I brought these dachshunds home. 0, none. It was already done. And I'm just like, this is amazing. This is absolutely freaking amazing, and every so often, they want out, they'll bark, whatever, and all this kind of, but overall, they were already pretty much golden in a lot of ways. And I'm just like, why did I not do this before? It just seems so obvious whenever you experience it, but I don't know. That's why I like asking these things from people. And you've had, and remind me again, you've had like 17 of these now, something like that.
I think this one is our 14th.
14th?
Yeah.
Okay. I knew it was in the teens somewhere. I couldn't remember.
Not including the puppies, but we've had a lot of puppies. But when I talked with Sophia, the breeder, and that's when it made sense to me. The dog stays with the other puppies and the mother. The mother goes out and teaches them where to go to the bathroom on grass, which is probably the only thing that, our dog will not crap on concrete. So we got to find grass, so when you live in an area with no concrete, it doesn't work out so great for us, or you do a lot of walking, but, Mother goes out, teaches them everything. The puppies are playing, they're interacting, they're learning how to be dogs and how to act by dogs. And yeah, it's, the way I learn it, you take that dog at 6 weeks, 8 weeks, the latest, and all wrong.
Yeah, they haven't learned any of it yet.
No.
Yeah.
Now you got to deal with it. And now it's, I don't know. I can't tell you how many puppies I've had that screaming in the crate at night, and then I got to let them on the bed. I got to, I got to stop this. You let them on the bed and you're like, oh man, you pissed in my bed.
Yep.
But it's, it's the right way, as far as I'm concerned now. I don't know how many breeders you're going to find that are going to do that.
Well, like I said, the ones that I've been in contact with or have gotten puppies from, I don't know, the first instance, I wouldn't have wanted it done that way quite as much because they were also incorporating, puppy pads into the training too, which I'm not a fan of.
It depends.
Yeah.
I've lived in Manhattan. You need a puppy pad.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in a completely urban environment and stuff and don't have a yard at all,
if you have a backyard, there's no reason for a puppy pad.
Right.
Actually, we still use it, but it was a mistake for a little while. We trained our dogs to ring bells, so we have sleigh bells that hang on on the doors.
Yeah, I've heard of that too. Yeah.
Yep. When they go up, they ring the bell and dogs got to go out. But Dachshunds being what they are,
smart. They want to go outside. They're just going to go ring the bell. They don't necessarily have potty.
Yeah. Well, it's like now I'm going to ring the bell because I just want to go out.
Right.
Or now I want to ring the bell just because feed me. Mm-hmm. Or now I want to ring the bell just because I like to watch you go over here and
ring,
try to open the door while I run into the other room. And it's a Dachshund thing. It's like you look like you're in a pretty good mood. Let me ruin that.
Yeah. They like being in control.
Yeah. And but it worked out. Where every now and then we have to take the bells away, but for the most part, at night we don't have accidents in the house because all of a sudden you get woken up to bells and dogs got to go. Mm-hmm. Out they go. Mm-hmm. And we're lucky enough to have a backyard where, we can just let them out and let them in. Mm-hmm. And, and even in the rain, the dog will ring the bells when it's got to really go. And they'll go out. Not that they spend much time on Dachshunds in rain. Mm-hmm. Kind of really weird. They don't want to go out in the rain, but they'll chase rabbits all day long in the rain.
Sure. Well, yeah, it's because it's their idea. It's what they want to do, though. Mm-hmm. So therefore, they'll do it.
Hey, it's a stubborn breed, but it's also a breed that, my wife and I have decided that as long as we can have dogs, we'll have Dachshunds. Mm-hmm. And though I was kind of almost a little surprised that she went for a wire hair because she really loved the long hair, and now she wants another wire hair. But Dachshunds are addictive, and I don't know. Getting them to chase rabbits is, actually they can't help it. Yeah. It's like crack. I mean, they chase them once, and it's like, I need it. And
it doesn't take very long for them to figure out, what they like and don't like. That's for sure.
It's I don't know. It was like I actually printed it out, and it's on my refrigerator. It's it was that honey badger thing with the internet. Honey badger don't give a shit. And it says honey badger don't give a shit, and then there's a picture underneath it that says with a Dachshund, it goes, "Bitch, I was bred to kill you."
That's hilarious. Well, cool, man. Well, before we end this, and thanks for sharing all that, by the way. I mean, I know you have a lot of experience with this breed, and it's been very helpful getting so many different viewpoints and takes, because this is a breed, I think, that definitely is one that people need to really know what they are getting into with. And I mean, they need to know the negatives and the positives both. And I've been really enjoying getting everybody's experiences with them, and I appreciate it. But before we call this good, though, you've already told some pretty cool stories. I want to get one of your more memorable hunting stories that you can think of that really sticks out in your mind, and then after that, get your biggest piece of advice, that you'd like to leave or would be good, you think, to leave for current and prospective falconers, and then we can wrap this conversation and go to dinner.
A story with a Dachshund.
Could be it could be the dogs, it could be the birds, it could be even your abatements. It doesn't matter. One of your more memorable stories that comes to mind, your experiences that you can think of off the top of your head.
Probably it was kind of funny, but it involves a hawk and a dog. I had a friend of mine in Long Island. He invited me to go hunting out by him. And Long Island's just as bad as New Jersey, limited space. So we're hunting a sump or an area around a sump. And we got a rabbit up, and the dog got it up, and the rabbit ran right into a little tiny hole in a tree, tree that was standing about 30 foot high. And the hawk just missed it as it was going in the hole. And my friend, he turns to me and he goes, "Oh man, well, we'll find another one. It ain't over. Just wait." And the Dachshund, the goss is sitting up. I don't even know where she was. She was just sitting up in a tree somewhere. We were more focused on the dog, and the dog goes up in the hole, and he's like, "Oh, pull the dog out, now, let it play." And you can hear the rabbit climbing up a hollow tree and the dog climbing up. It wasn't a really big tree, maybe 16 inches in diameter, but obviously hollow, and it was broken off at the top at about 30 foot. And the Dachshund crawled up that tree as the rabbit was, and rabbit bailed right out the top of the tree, and before it hit the ground, the goss got it. It was pretty memorable.
That's cool. I mean, normally you hear that kind of stuff with squirrels, but not so much rabbits.
Well, that rabbit bailed. I guess it's, I don't know. When the Dachshund came out, you could see why he bailed out. She had the classic Dachshund beard of white and gray, white and brown, so she was biting them all the way up. And it was a good catch. Yeah. And, it was kind of funny. My friend, that was John. And I guess it was about within 4 months, he got his Dachshund.
It's funny how that works, right?
Once you see it, it's just, if you're going to chase rabbits, having a Dachshund is, if you're going to fly, red tails, it gives you such an advantage. If you're going to fly goshawks, it gives you such an advantage. Mm-hmm. It's just, the only, I think probably the only downside, and that was another time with John, is, you're taken out of the equation a bit, so even when I first got, my first Dachshund, I felt, and it's just a feeling like here I used to control the situation. I used to be in charge, I would predict where the rabbit was going to bust and the hawk would follow me. Well, all of a sudden, within a few months of that dog working with the goshawk, I'd say, well, I want to hunt this side of the field. The dog would say, no, I want to hunt this side of the field. And the hawk would go, yeah, I'm not following you. You don't know how to put up a rabbit.
Right, yeah.
And so it's like, oh, so I just get to follow you guys.
Yeah.
I had, we were at a PA meet. I don't, like 17 or I don't know, a long time ago. And I had a couple of Long Island guys with us, and we're flying the Goshawk and had 2 Dachshunds running, and the only thing that there was really to do is to go down and pick up the hawk off a rabbit and put it back up, and all of a sudden I see them all walk away, and I was like, well, that's kind of weird. I guess somebody must have to go to the bathroom, but why is everybody going? And when I asked him later, why did you leave? Because there's nothing for us to do. There's nothing for, we don't get to beat brush. Not, it's like, why would you want to?
Yeah, I mean, some people really need to feel that way, though. I hunt with 1 or 2 guys in particular that they would probably just be lost. Yeah, I mean, they always have to be doing something. It's a big reason why they're exhibitor-minded type guys. They always got to be going, or whatever. And if they don't have their place or, whatever their purpose, it's like, yeah, they don't really know what to do themselves either. So
I've always really enjoyed actually getting to watch the hawk and the dog. I guess, sometimes you get to see a good kill, but, now you get to see it every time, because the dog's doing the work for you. You're seeing the whole thing happening. You're seeing the rabbit bust. You can keep your eyes on the rabbit, or you can keep your eyes on the hawk,
Yeah.
At one of those, it was somebody else that wanted to see a Dachshund run. We put the dog up, and the hawk, flew way into the trees, and Goshawk, and the guy was like, man, you lost your hawk. No, I didn't. Just watch the dog. But what do you mean? Watch the dog. When a rabbit goes up, watch the rabbit. And sure enough, there goes the dog's tail, and boom, out a rabbit goes, and he's sitting there watching the rabbit, and the hawk flew over and clipped him right in the with the wing, right in the side of his head, and and flew right over and caught a rabbit. And he was like, well, what? Well, that's why he watched a rabbit, But doing typical Goshawk stuff, and flying them off the fist, that's a lot of fun. But I've had a lot of fun flying them out of the trees too.
Yeah.
Actually, I think more.
Yeah.
But it's just because, but it's not classical falconry,
Well, I mean, we won't even get into that. We won't even go into that, okay? But anyway, well, that's like I said, man, that's killer. And like I said, before we wrap it, though, I do want to get that piece of advice from you, and then we can call this good, bud.
Get a Dachshund.
That's hilarious.
Be your hawk's friend. Get a Dachshund. Hey, if you're gonna hunt rabbits, if you're not, if you're gonna hunt ducks, get something else. Although Dachshunds do really well with ducks.
Yeah.
Flushing ducks, they love it.
Yeah.
And actually, I haven't really found anything that a Dachshund isn't willing to tackle. Maybe not as a puppy, but once they get that, once they get that craziness in them, they'll flush ducks, they'll flush, whatever, but it's a lot of fun. And, I think it's just like anything. If you treat your animals right and your hawk's right, your dog's right, they'll give you everything they got.
Yeah. Killer, man. Well, thanks so much for this conversation. It's been fun.
Cool. It's been fun.
Yeah. I hope you had a good time. And like I said, thanks again for coming out and doing this with me. And I guess now's go get something to eat.
Let's do it.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you.